Sir?
Sir, good afternoon, sir.
Are you looking for still someone more? Sir,
I think we can start exactly at 4 o'clock. We should start, please.
Good afternoon, sir.
Hi, Dr. Sushil.
Good afternoon,
Good
sir.
evening. Good evening to all. I request Dr. Rajna to anchor this session. Please proceed.
A very good evening to one and all present here, and it is a very pleasant evening. We are all meeting a lot of people, each other, even though through online, many of them are introducing themselves, and it is a very, very, very pleasant evening for youngsters like us, and a very good evening to one and all. And my name is Dr. Rajna. I am scientist at Division of Entomology, ICAR. So in this, I extend a warm welcome to one and all on behalf of this Entomological Society of India and Division of Entomology, ICAR, on this occasion of our first ESI Foundation Day lecture. And as we celebrate the Foundation Day of our society, we extend the heartfelt wishes to you all. And we are all fortunate to be a part of this 84-year-old professional society, which is one of the largest of its kind, serving entomologists and researchers in related disciplines across the country. On the commencement of this program, I request for the invocation song to be played. Dr. Sagar sir, please.
I request all the participants to keep their mics muted, please.
Thank you, Dr. Sagar. As we move on, I request Dr. S. Subramanian, Head Division of Entomology ICAR-IRA, and the convener of this today's program to deliver the welcome address.
Good evening to everybody. We all have joined in the first Foundation Day lecture of the Entomological Society of India. Already Rajana has told. Anyway, I'd like to remind you, on the same day of January 6, 1938, this society was founded. And the society has passed 84 long years. And if you write the history of entomology in India, it's partly we are also chronicling the story of our Entomological Society of India as well. Even before that also, there are a dozen of contributions. They have contributed to the science of entomology, and also and one or other way, all are linked to the Society of Entomology. And we have with us today to deliver the first Foundation Day lecture. Yeah, befitting personality is nothing but Dr. A. Raman. He is an eminent science historian, eminent entomologist. He is a senior scientist at the CSIRO, Perth, Australia. He will be delivering the first Foundation Day lecture. Sir, I will be welcoming you for delivering this lecture today. We have with us our chief patron, Dr. S.N. Puri. Sir, very warm good evening and welcome you, sir. And Dr. K.S. Kokar, sir, and vice patron of our Entomological Society, welcome you, sir. I also welcome Dr. V.V. Ramurthy, President
Dr.
of
David,
Entomological
Dr.
Society
V.V.
of
David
India.
is there, please.
No, sir. Yes, sir, I'm coming here, sir.
Okay.
And also Dr. Sachin Suresh, General Secretary. And I welcome all the office bearers of the Executive Council of Entomology and all the scientists as the fellows, members, all who have been part of the Entomological Society and who have contributed to the science of entomology and who all have joined. I welcome you all. We have with us a number of eminent scientists led by Dr. B.V. David, sir. He is the legend of entomology. We have with us, sir. We are fortunate to have you here, sir. We have with us Dr. Sushil, Director, NBIR, Bangalore. Dr. Ramani, former Director, INR, Ranchi. Dr. N.K. Krishna Kumar, Deputy Director General of ICR, formerly Deputy General of ICR. Dr. Bento. To some extent, I can summarize some of the personality whom I could listed. Dr. Ravi Joshi from Philippines, Dr. Ahuja, Dr. Swaminathan, Dr. Kishwa Karmakar, Dr. Ashokan, Dr. P.N. Ramani, Dr. Girirar Kachi, Dr. T.P. Rajendran, Dr. Duri. So I could say a lot of eminent personalities.
Dr. Muniappan from USA.
Yes, sir. We are glad to have him, sir. Welcome you, sir, for joining this Entomological Society of India first Foundation Day lecture with us. So a galaxy of entomologists who laid the foundation of the society as well as their contribution, all are joined here for the purpose of listening to Dr. A. Raman today. I will be coming again for giving a brief about Dr. Raman later. Now
Dr.
over
Raman will
to
be happy to see Dr. Raman will be happy to see Dr. Surya Narayan from Chennai.
Yes, nice to know,
Your
sir.
colleague. Yes, okay.
I might have omitted someone, not intentionally. Just I could have a glance of Professor T.V.K. Singh has joined from Hyderabad. Welcome you, sir. Sir Ramurthy, sir, I might have missed someone. You could.
Yes, yes. I think you please go ahead now.
Yes.
I also cannot remember everybody. Okay.
Welcome you all for this grand evening.
Dr. Chandish Bilal is there. Chandish Bilal. Okay.
Yes. Rajana, please proceed.
Thank you, sir. Today, also we have with us many, as sir told, a galaxy of entomologists we can see here. But the one who is here with us is Dr. S.N. Puri, sir, who is the chief patron of our Entomological Society of India. And I request Dr. S.N. Puri, sir, to give the opening remarks of first ESI Foundation Day lecture.
Thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes,
Yes,
sir.
sir.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Most respected colleague Dr. Kokar Saab, former Vice Chancellor Chaudhry Charan Singh Haryana State Agricultural University, and chairman of today's function. The most esteemed guest speaker today, who will be delivering the first Foundation Day lecture, Dr. Ananta Narayanan Raman Saab from Australia. My esteemed colleague, Dr. Ramamurthy ji, the President of the Entomological Society of India. Dr. Suroshe, Executive Secretary. Dr. Subramaniam, who is convener of this function. All the fellowship, all the esteemed colleagues. I find it difficult to name each and every one of them. The fellowships, all the fellows, members of the society, executive council members, both present and past, and friends, ladies and gentlemen. It's indeed a great pleasure for me to be personally associated with this function today, which is the first Foundation Day lecture of the Entomological Society of India, which is being organized by Dr. Ramamurthy, our present president. I congratulate Dr. Ramamurthy and all the members of the Executive Council for taking this very important decision to celebrate the Foundation Day of the Society, which is 84 years old. At the same time, we find that society is making a lot of progress. We have got good number of fellows, life fellows, but still there are many things to be done. And I'm sure that Dr. Ramamurthy and his Executive Council team will take the agenda further. I'm very happy to have today, as we are having Dr. Ananta Narayanan Raman as a speaker to deliver the first Foundation Day lecture of the society. As you know, he is a double doctoral. He took 2 doctoral degrees from Madras University, and he has a long experience of teaching and research, both in India and Australia. Besides CSIRO, he is associated with the Charles Sturt University of Australia. And one thing which really I find more important to mention, that few years back, he has written some article about the history of Entomological Society of India in one of the leading journals in our country. And I had an opportunity, Dr. Ramamurthy showed me that piece of work, and I was really very happy to see that something is documented about the society by a person who is known as a science historian in the field of science. Dr. Ananta Narayanan sir, I welcome you for this function, and at the same time I would like to keep on record our sincere gratitude to you for accepting our request. We could not find anybody who is well versed with the entomological society and entomological science development in our country, and with your vast experience which you have gained in different universities and as an editor of different journals. Particularly his area of research on insect ecology, insect environment, which is of very much importance nowadays. And I hope the fellowship will be benefited with the word of advice and guidance from Dr. Ananta Narayanan Raman when he will be delivering his Foundation Day speech. I'm extremely thankful to you, Dr. Ramamurthy ji, for inviting me and giving me an opportunity to witness this very important milestone in the history of our society. And I hope that this tradition will be continued every year by observing the Foundation Day lecture every incoming future. Thank you once again. Because we are meeting for the first time to all the fellowship, it is my duty, and I deem it my pleasure to extend our sincere good wishes to you, your family members, for the happy and prosperous New Year 2023, and also to the society for its development. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, sir. Now I welcome Dr. K.S. Khokar, sir, ex-Vice Chancellor, Chaudhary Charan Singh Haryana Agricultural University, Hisar, to preside at the first ESI Foundation Day lecture and give his opening introductory remarks. Sir, please. Sir, आप muted है, sir.
Unmute करिए.
Thank you, Dr. Rajana. Honorable Chief Patron of the Society, Dr. S.N. Puri Saab, President of Entomological Society of India, Dr. Ramamurthy, Dr. Ananta Narayan Raman, the Chief Speaker of the day, who will be delivering his lecture, the Foundation Day lecture, first Foundation lecture, and his biodata will be introduced later on, but Dr. Puri Saab has introduced him to some extent. All the council members, all life fellows, all esteemed entomologists present today, or those who have joined online. So at the outset, I would like to thank my chief patron and all office bearer, including the president, to give me this opportunity to preside over the first foundation lecture of Entomological Society of India. So, as you are all aware that this society was founded in 1938 and it's almost 85 years old now. It started publishing the Indian Journal of Entomology a year later, and it is one of the largest scientific society and serving the cause of entomology for the last so many decades. In fact, that Indian Journal of Entomology, which was started publishing in 1939, it's a foremost journal in disseminating the research result in entomology, and it attracted worldwide attention even in the pre-independence period, with many Indian entomologists find their contribution. We have many pioneering entomologists, and even that today there are witnesses, those who have seen Dr. Pradhan, Dr. E.S. Narayanan, Dr. T.V. Ramakrishna Iyer, Dr. T.N. Anant Krishnan, and many, many more who have nurtured this society and brought this society to this level. The present Executive Council is striving very hard to modify it, to change it to the present requirement. And the journal is attracting submissions from many scientists, especially those who are future professional and those who are budding scientists. With the recent digitization and with online publishing and some changes of the open journal management system, the journal has become global in nature now, and it has started attracting submissions from many countries like US, Japan, and even from Russia, in addition to so many other countries. The journal is also trying to get the Scopus rating, which will enhance its credibility in the times to come. When we see that which aspects of which frontier areas the journal is dealing with, we know that uh, it is disseminating the information and knowledge in the frontier aspects of agriculture and forest insects, commercial entomology, medical and veterinary entomology, ecology, toxicology, physiology, insect genetics, and molecular biology, and systematics and evolution very relentlessly. Then, in this way, the ESI is providing a unique form in furthering the science of entomology, and it is promoting excellence, and it is a witness to the how entomology is being practiced in India, and provide the required transformation through motivation and encouragement. And today's foundation lecture will be a testimony that how this uh, journal and this ESI is moving now, and it is locating the significant entomologist contribution from universities and laboratories of India, and offering an appropriate forum for their exposure. It is also interesting to know that ESI is now modifying itself to adapt and meet the changed requirements. These are in line with similar global entities like the Royal Entomological Society and the Entomological Society of America in particular, so that it can expand its reach to, all zone of India. And now it is reverting back to the old system, to the zonal councils and chapters. So earlier, as all of us are aware, that the President of India has been its patron of the Entomological Society of India. Now, just to make it more objective oriented, now we are effecting many changes, and now the changes are visible to each and everyone now. Now we are fortunate to have an excellent entomologist and a historical writer, a science historical writer in Dr. Anant Narayan Raman, who is from Australia, and he will be delivering the first foundation lecture uh, of this society. And I consider, and that you will all agree with my perception, that commemorating the celebration of foundation lecture is the most relevant and appropriate. And I congratulate this for those who have thought it, particularly Dr. Ramamurthy and his team, and our chief patron, Dr. S. Puri. So I hope all of us will remember and cherish this day for a long time to come. And now I welcome Dr. Antaranaran for this very pious duty, which he will be performing as a first speaker. And not taking more of your time, I do not like to stand between you and the speaker. Thank you, everyone. Thanks all.
Thank you very much, sir. Now it is time for the Foundation Day lecture. And before that, I request Dr. S. Subramanian, convener of the program, to introduce the speaker to the gathering.
Sir, unmute, sir.
Unmute, sir. Good evening to all. I have an arduous task of introducing Dr. A. Raman to the audience, because Dr. Raman needs no introduction. Anyway, for the benefit of our younger generation, I give a brief introduction about his career as well as his contribution to the science as a whole and as an entomology in part. He obtained his Bachelor of Science from Madras University in the year 1969, Masters of Science from the same University of Madras in 1971. He is the holder of two doctorates, one from a PhD in 1981 and DSc in the year 2000 from the University of Madras. He started his career in the year 1991 at the Loyola College, and he had been in India during the period 1991 to 95. Then he moved to Charleston University. He had a long career of research starting from 1991 and continuing today. Presently, he is working as a senior scientist at CSIRO at Perth, Australia. And also he is the adjunct professor of Charleston University, Australia. He is the fellow of Linnean Society of London, fellow of the National Institute of Ecology, and he is the member of many professional societies worldwide. To summarize his work philosophy, it's very interesting to note. He says his work philosophy is to teach students to know more and learn to live socially responsible and responsive human beings. It's a great, and he has guided in his long career more than 25 students on doctorate in the subjects like ecological agriculture and land management. He has a specialization in insect plant interaction with a specific focus on insect galls. He has the expertise in microscopic and histological techniques, especially his mastery over microscopy, microtomy, and histological techniques are impeccable. They are all testified by his publications. A large volume of scientific publications he has made, more than 100 publications in reputed journals. Dr. Raman has undertaken a visiting lecturership in a number of universities in India and abroad. University of Delhi, Madras University, University of Calicut, Madurai Kamaraj University, Paraidasan University, Bharatiyar University, Indian National Science Academy, Federation University of Australia, University of Western Australia, University of Nebraska, and the list endless. Dr. Raman has delivered a number of memorial lectures, including CP Alexander 18th CP Alexander Memorial Lecture, first MS Mani Centenary Address, the lecture of the Todla Egambaram Endowment Lecture at the Madras University. At the Banaras Hindu University, he delivered the Madan Mohan Malaviya oration. In the professional service, he has been an editor and in the editorial board in a number of journals like a Journal of Plant Interactions, Oriental Insects, Flora, International Journal of Ecology, Environmental Sciences, and many scores of journals. Raman is actually known as a scientific historian, especially his publication on science, especially on the history of science, are very interesting. Sample some of these topics: historical note, photography and photomicrography, an introduction to the history and philosophy of science, historical note on medical journalism. Likewise, he has written a lot on many aspects of the science. We are fortunate to have many of his veritable articles in Current Science and many other journals. He has a lot of recognition and awards. To cite a few: Agricultural Innovation, Research and Excellence Award, MS Mani Centenary Award, and Ian Potter Foundation Distinguished Scholar, Grant Royal Society of New Zealand's Research Grant, and Fulbright Grant, to cite a few. So the awards and honors are many, and also his contributions are many. We are fortunate to have Dr. Raman to deliver the first Foundation Day lecture. Over to you, sir, Dr. Raman. Thank you.
Sir, please.
Yeah, I can hear.
share.
I'm just unmuting the system.
Yes, sir. And I request all to please get muted and please
Please,
don't.
all participants, please keep your mic muted.
Thank you.
Good evening to everybody. My name is Raman. I prefer to be called that way. My father's name is Anantanarayanan, and that's a style we write in South, especially Madras. So I would like to be called Raman by all. And thank you very much for this kind invitation. Am I being audible?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And my screen is visible to all of you?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Wonderful. Thank you. If there is any interruption, please stop me.
Okay, sir.
Thank you. Just feel free to call me Raman. I'm very uncomfortable with this addressing of sir. Anyway, So I'm extremely grateful to the trustees of the ESI group, especially Ramurthy Subramanian and Dr. Puri and everyone who has been kind enough in asking me to do this first Foundation Day talk. I feel extremely honored. It's a delight for me to accept this invitation, and thank you very much for all of it. When I was approached by Ramurthy to give this talk, I was a bit hesitant first. One, because I am not very happy doing the online talks because I feel very alienated from my audience. But now that COVID has taught us many lessons, and one of the lessons is being able to communicate to people or via the online medium. And I have learned to speak through this dead screen in front of me and seeing you through the images. And right now I have even removed that image because it is interfering with my screen. Anyway, forgive me for all that. And my interest is to, I told Ramurthy that I will speak on the proteomics of gall induction, which is one of my latest papers published in Journal of Plant Interactions in London, Taylor and Francis. But then he preferred that I do a recap of the history of entomology in India, an article which I wrote in about 3-4 years ago when ESI was approaching its 80th anniversary. So at that time, I wrote that article in collaboration with Dr. Chitra Narayan Swami of Tamil Nadu Agricultural University, Coimbatore, who has been a substantial support for me at that point of time because some of the literature I could not get. She was very willingly and readily supplied me, and a great friend of mine and a great support. So when I talk about this, I am speaking partly from that article. I am not speaking fully because it will take a lot of time for me to speak about it, given that there is a big constraint called time constraint. I'm going to restrict myself to some limited aspects of that. So it may not be extremely comprehensive, but I am planning to take you all through a quick bird's eye view of the entire development sequence. I am going to stop this presentation with Muhammad Afzal Hussain, who was the first president of the Entomological Society of India, and also the creator of the journal, which later on became the Indian Journal of Entomology in 1939. So I'm going to stop with that. I'm not going to go further into it because, as I said before, it is going to take an enormous time for me to cover this nearly 300 years of history. And because I'm talking about a little drab subject of history, I thought I will implant my article, my presentation with a few colorful slides, especially those using some of the native species of arthropods or insects, which are absolutely fascinating and stunning to me. And I suppose they will equally be stunning to you. So I'm starting with Pepio Krishna as my first talk. And once again, let me thank Ramurthy Subramanian, Dr. Puri, Dr. Kokar, Dr. Rajna, everybody for the kindness shown to me. We have to start the story with Johann Gerhard Koenig. The story starts with him, essentially because we are talking about the formal Western science-based entomological reporting. Some of you may have read this paper, some of you may have known about this name, but some of you may not have known about this. Johann Gerhard Koenig was an 18th century surgeon who was trained in botany with Carl Linnaeus. So he was one of the early trainees, or disciples is a better word to say here, of Linnaeus. And Linnaeus deputed some of his disciples to different parts of India. And in that context, Koenig came to Tranquebar, which was previously known as Shadanganpadi in South India near Tanjavur. And he was representing the Royal Danish Lutheran Mission, and are also known as the Halle Mission or the Tranquebar Mission in 1767. He came as a medical doctor because he was trained medical doctor. Of course, the Danes have done that. It's very confusing at this stage because Halle is technically in Germany, but at that time Halle a town in present-day Germany, was part of Denmark. The northern part of Germany was part of Denmark under the King Frederick IV. So King Frederick IV sent a mission to spread the Protestant mission, a part of it which was known as the Lutheran mission, and this person was sent to India as part of that. Before him, there were a few others, especially Ziegenbalg was already there, but then Koenig came slightly later, and another famous name is an Alsatian person by name Rottler. Anyway, we are not talking about Rottler here. It is Koenig, who is important in our context, a special context. Koenig, while working in Tanjavur as a medical doctor, published the professional journal paper, which was known as the Naturgeschichte der sogenannten Weizenamize. That is the natural history of the so-called white ants, the termites, in the research activities of Berlin Society of the Friends of Nature. It's a very long name, and I have given the German name for that in volume 4 in 1779. Probably, sorry, I have to withdraw that word. Definitely, this is the oldest formally published journal paper pertaining to insects from India. But it was done by Koenig, who was otherwise known as Johann Gerhard Koenig. In this article, Koenig refers to termites and termitaria as he studied at a location southeast of Tanjavur. He describes the structure of the termitaria and the biological details of termites. This is the crux of his paper. And Koenig declares that his inspiration to write this article comes from the work of Johann Christian Fabricius, who is also very well known in India with regard to many insect descriptions, and a Danish naturalist whose writing on casts in European termites was published previously. Sorry, any questions? Excuse me.
Dr. Ranjit Singh, please mute your mic, please.
So a Danish naturalist whose writing on casts in European termites was published previously in Germany. So I have given here the first page of his, as my pointer indicates, this is the first page of his article, which is available in the internet, and this is Johann Koenig. And I have given you some brief details about Koenig. It's worth talking about Koenig separately, but such a volume of work he has done. And the most common unforgettable element about Koenig is this morning, Dr. Prashant Mohanraj from Bangalore and I were chatting on the line, and he did talk about the Murraya koenigi, the flavoring plant which we use in many of the delicacies in India, and that is named after him in the plant side. The next important person here is Edward Donovan. Edward Donovan is an important Anglo-Irish writer who mostly lived in London, a natural history illustrator and an amateur biologist. What we need to remember here is Donovan has never come to India. He wrote about the Indian insects. You can see his book's name, An Epitome of the Natural History of Insects of India and the Islands in the Indian Seas. And one of the brilliant images, beautiful illustration of Chalcosoma atlas is supplied by him, which is absolutely scintillating image, which you can find from the epitome of the natural history of insects of India. In fact, the deficiency of making photographs has never been felt with those beautiful illustrations they have made. Some of them were made by themselves, but some others were made by hiring professional artists. But situations were different in each circumstance. Now, in this case, I would like to acknowledge the work of Edward Donovan, who was an illustrator himself. So all this artwork was done by him. And the next important person was Francillon John. John Francillon was a London jeweler, again an amateur entomologist, a gemstone cutter and a polisher, and an avid naturalist. Insect collectors he was an insect collector who was mostly interested in the butterflies of the world, and therefore he had also had collections of the insects of India. It is quite interesting for us to remember that, maybe I'll touch on that in the next point, The other important person whom we have to remember at this stage is Drew Drury, who was a natural history specimen collector and with a special interest in insects. He collected insects from throughout the world using a network of sailors and East India Company officials. So many of the collections that were made from India particularly were collected by the officers of the East India Company and sent to Britain, or to these sorts of insect collectors who also had an amateur interest and described or outlined those insects in different volumes. So his specimens were used by many natural historians of his time to describe and name new species. Drew Drury is best known for his book on illustrations of natural history, which includes the names and descriptions of many insects published in parts. They were published in different volumes, what I have described here as parts, from 1970 to 1982, with copperplate engravings done by Moses Harris. So in this case, Drew Drury was not an illustrator. As I said before, the artwork was done by one Moses Harris, who was hired by him. But here I have especially highlighted the work of Edward Donovan, 1768 to 1837. And I have given two examples as my, two illustrations as my examples here. Another beautiful insect, hemipteran, a fulgurid, which is, I was simply fascinated when I saw the name of that first, Kalidasa lanata, a beautiful name. And it is so interesting to me as a hemipterist myself, although I work mostly on orchinorhynchs. I'm sorry, sternorhynchs. Anyway, that takes us to the other aspect about the historical previous to the British arrival and the British influence on Indian entomology is the lac insect, because lac insect has been recognized in several ancient historical documents. So one of the important elements, plants is lac, which was used in different forms. Diverse medicinal uses of lac are indicated in Atharva Veda, estimated 2nd century, and the reference is that of Zisk. And I have provided the details of the reference at the bottom. And Mahabharata refers to the Laksha Griha or Jatu Griha, a house of lac. And again, it is sourced in internet sacred text archives. Now, Amarasimha, a famous author of Amarakosha, he speaks about the Kerialaka insect, although he did not know the name of the insect at that time. I'm using it for the sake of convenience here because I'm speaking to an entomological audience. In the second volume, in the section Vana Aushadhi Varga. So here he speaks about Laksha Raksha Jatu Kliba, Yave Laktu Dru Mayamaha. So where he talks about the Laksha Raksha Jatu. So that is an important reference which we have to cite about, and that is available in Amarakosha of Amarasimha, which we today know as Kerialaka. Butea monosperma is indicated as a Laksha Taru. That's another important point. Butea monosperma is the most favored host of the Laksha. And I understand that Dr. Ranganathan is here, Ramani Ranganathan, so who is an authority on Laksha. So I will play my cards very safely here, although I have written a story about Kerr's work, James Kerr's work in Current Science some years ago. And when we talk about this James Kerr's work, what I want you to remember is he described it in a 1781 in the Philosophical Transactions of the Royal Society, London. And I have given here the pages from that paper, which I have used in my Current Science article. But it was also described by William Roxburgh, who is remembered as a botanist more than anything else, a medical doctor who came to Madras and Saharanpur near Samalkot. He worked as the director of that, superintendent of that botanical garden in Samalkot, which was near Madras. And later on, he succeeded Robert Kidd as the Calcutta Botanical Garden superintendent in subsequent years. Now, this William Roxburgh also described this Kerialaka independent of James Kerr's work, but then it was slightly later in time, but then James Kerr's work is accepted and now the name stands as Kerialaka. So these are all interesting papers that are available to us. Then comes the most important name when we talk about this history of entomology in India is T.V. Ramakrishna. I heard already people talking about Tarakat Vaidyanathan Ramakrishna Iyer, or otherwise preferably in preference called as T.V. Ramakrishna. In 1939, he has written in the inaugural volume of Indian Journal of Entomology, the first article, Entomology in India, a retrospect, which is one of the finest articles. And I didn't have a copy, so I asked Ramurthy to supply me a copy, which he obliged me with, and it was another delight to go through. I would encourage people who have not seen that article to read it. It is a brilliant exposure to a thorough, a comprehensive resume of entomology until 1939. Then it's a sample list of those Caucasian people or the white people who contributed to entomology in India. I'm just making a summary of it because if I start talking about each of them, I won't be able to finish in the prescribed time. So just to summarize, just a few important papers or volumes. Drew Drury, 1773, Illustrations of Natural History, wherein are exhibited upwards of 220 figures of exotic insects according to different genera. And this includes a large chunk of Indian insects. Then comes the one which I already spoke about, Edward Donovan, an epitome of natural history of insects of India and the islands of the Indian seas, comprising upwards, which is a pretty long name, and I have provided the full name here for people's reference. Then comes in 1802, Thomas Marsham, Entomologia Britannica, and it's a Latin name, and that is provided there in full, published by Wilkes and Taylor, London, pages 547. Then Vincent Scolar and Rettenbacher, Ludwig Rettenbacher. It's a German volume which refers to the insects that are found in the Himalayan Gebirge, the Himalayan ranges, and their insects, especially collected by Carl van Hugel in Kashmir and the kingdom of Sikh. The Sikh kingdom is Punjab. Then Hooker comes, Joseph Dalton Hooker, who is better known as a botanist, but people should know that he was a very profound naturalist. And it's a joy, I would say, to read the Himalayan journals or the notes of a naturalist in Bengal, the Sikkim and Nepal Himalaya and the Khassia Mountains. It's simply a pleasure to read those two volumes just for the language part of it. Leave aside the rest of the natural history which Dalton Hooker speaks about. One of the very remarkable persons, and I have also written about Joseph Dalton Hooker because many people have written, but I have written about some aspects which others have not written, published in Current Science some years ago. Then Leon Vermeer, and who has written about the Coleoptera of the Kashmir Mountains, who he is from Belgium. Again, he has not traveled to India. Insects were obtained by him by different East India Company officials who supplied him the insects. Then comes another interesting person, and I have deliberately, I underscored the word Bengal Occidental. It's Charles Kermans, who has written about the Coleoptera of Bengal Occidental and the Buprestidae of India. I was a bit confused. Why did he use the word Bengal Occidental? And I found that at that period of time, that was early parts of the 20th century and late parts of 19th century, Bengal was divided into two. That is, the people who were favoring Bengali language and Sanskrit language as the sort of a spoken language there, whereas many others would prefer English as the sort of a primary language, which included a few educated elite Bengalis also. So therefore, in that context, the divided Bengal was referred as Bengal Occidental or Occidental Bengal. So that is the reason why Charles Kermans had used the term, and I was quite amused to read that explanation. But historically, it seems to be quite interesting, and therefore I thought I will share that with all of you. Now, that's something very brief about the summary of that. But an important person who made a big stride in the Indian entomology was Frederick Hope, Frederick William Hope. And he has published an article on the entomology of the Himalayas. He uses the word Himalayas. And in my article I have written an article on Hope, comparing his entomology with that of M.S. Mani's entomology, because Mani was well known as a Himalayan entomologist. And I have had the good fortune of knowing Mani personally. I have gone to his house in Padmanabhanagar in Adayar several times as a doctoral student to discuss goals with him. So having known him so intimately and so well and so closely, I thought I should pay my homage to MS Mani. And I wrote an article which was published in the Indian Journal of Entomology a few years ago, comparing the work of Hope and that of Mani, which I have cited at the bottom. I have written there is an article, Entomology and Biogeography of Himalaya, Frederick Hope and Mahadeva S. Mani, Indian Journal of Entomology 2016. Anyway, back to Hope. Frederick William Hope on the entomology of the Himalayas. He uses the word Himalayas, and I have heard Mani challenging that word Himalayas, and he always told me that it is wrong and incorrect to say Himalayas. He says Himalaya is a Sanskrit word which derives from the Hima plus Alaya. That is the abode of the Himavan or the Hima. So therefore, it is not abodes of the Himavan, and it is abode of Himavan, and therefore it has to be written as Himalaya only. I have echoed this comment of Mani in my obituary of Mani, which was published in the Oriental Insects when Mani passed away, along with V.K. Gupta. And in that one, I have clarified what Mani used to say about it. So in the subsequent sections, I don't use the word Himalayas, but I will always say Himalaya because I am convinced of Mani's explanation. But anyway, I can't change what Hope has written, and therefore I have still used the word Himalayas here. And this is published as a part of the botanist, Dr. Royal, is a medical doctor, John Forbes Royal, who was in Madras Medical Service and later on working in Calcutta as the botanical or the superintendent of the Calcutta Botanical Garden, illustrations of the botany and other branches of the natural history of the Himalayan mountains and the flora of Kashmir. And in that one, Hope has contributed a chapter. How did I come across? I didn't see this volume first. I happened to trip on this reproduced article in the Madras Journal of Literature and Science, which was published in those days from Madras. I was simply amazed, and I thought that was the article because I have given here in parentheses that it is reproduced in the Madras Journal of Literature and Science. And subsequently, I found that it was in 1839 published in Forbes' volume, or Royal's volume, but then subsequently reproduced again in MJLS in Madras. Anyway, that's about the historical aspects about this article. In this chapter, that is as published in Royal's Illustrations of Botany, Hope speaks of the Himalayan and Indian species represented in several subfamilies of the Coleoptera. I have listed all of that. In addition, he alludes to the morphological similarities of the Indian taxa with the well-known Coleoptera from the remainder of the world, from Europe and Africa and other biogeographical regions of Indian subcontinent, such as Sri Lanka. So those of us who are interested in the biodiversity, who are interested in biogeography of arthropods or Coleoptera in particular, or have a broad idea about the insect, or rather the general entomology of India, I would strongly urge and encourage people to read some of these classics, which provide us extreme insights into how they were recognized and how they were described. It is the same Hope who also wrote about some Lamellicon Coleoptera from northern India in Transactions of the Entomological Society of London. And he was a professor in the Oxford University Zoology, and he was often consulted by Charles Darwin. Most of his coleopteran insects were consulted by Charles Darwin for his evolution explanations. So it's a remarkable personality we are talking about. So I'm just using this opportunity to remind us how this grand people have worked and how many contributions were made. Then when I was working on this particular set of slides, I was stunned to see that a name Stolichka, a Prague name, or rather a name that was coming from the Prussian Empire, the former Prussian Empire, currently the Czech Republic. It was frequently occurring there. And I found that it was Ferdinand Stoichka, who worked in the government of India 1878, 1891. And he was basically a geologist. He was not an entomologist, but the width and breadth of the knowledge of Stoichka was so tremendous just like Joseph Dalton Hooker, who showed brilliance not only with regard to botany and zoology and entomology and geology. He has made so many interesting remarks about the Himalayan mountains. So like that, Stroichka was also another exciting person to learn about. But the unfortunate element about Stroichka was that when he led what is called as the second Yarkand mission, Yarkand is located currently in China, a little north of Sikkim, and he led a mission for collections and notes of various natural history materials of interest for Indian government. And unfortunately, he died halfway. So because he died halfway, all the notes what Stroichka had written and left were collected and re-edited and investigated by different scientists later on. And I have made a list of those who worked only on the arthropods. For example, Picard Cambridge Octavius, or Octavius Picard Cambridge, wrote on the Aranidae, the Frederick Smith on Hymenoptera, Robert McLaughlin on Neuroptera, and Lucas William Distant on Rhynchota. Distant, of course, the name most of us know. And the Coleoptera especially was divided into several other groups: Henry Walter Bates, Frederick Bates, his son, his brother, and Oliver Erickson Jansen, and David Sharp, and Joseph Sugar Bailey. I have made an effort, if you may have noticed that I have made an effort to provide the first names of all the entomologists I have listed so far. It is simply because I thought a confusion would come to the reader at any time, similar to Bates Henry Walter as against Bates Frederick. Because if we simply refer to them as Dr. Bates, it can either be Henry Walter Bates or it can be Frederick Bates. But they are two different people, although they are siblings. So therefore, we need to be extremely careful in identifying their first names and use them in the right manner. And that is one of the reasons why so far I have labored to provide the first names of every author who has been referred here. Stroichka, I do not know how many of us are familiar with, but here is a person whom we should know, who was primarily a geologist who came from the Prussian Empire to work in Calcutta, and was also responsible for understanding or collecting the specimens of insects at those times, especially towards Yarkand, which is currently in China. Now, I'm going to speak about an important person. At least to me, it's an important person. Oh, sorry, it has moved back. Charles Niceville, or Niceville. Charles Niceville is remembered in several articles. People do remember him, but I will make a quick passing reference to him here, because without him, the history of entomology in India will be incomplete. He was born in Bristol in London, although his name is very French. The Niceville joined the Calcutta Small Cause Court as a clerk in 1870. From 1881, he spent his spare time looking at insects. In later years, he worked with most of the then well-known entomologists working on Indian insects, such as Henry John Elves and James Wood Mason. James Wood Mason, the name most of us know. At least Dr. Bentur will remember, because the old name of the sestromyid that is infesting this, the paddy plant is described by Wood Mason. He mostly studied, he is here, Niceville, mostly studied the Rhopalocera of Sikkim. He published several papers in the Journal of Royal Asiatic Society of Bengal in the 1880s. In 1890, he summarized all of his studies of the Rhopalocera in the Gazetteer of Sikkim, recording about 600 species of Sikkim Rhopalocera. Although referred as Sikkim, he had included those butterflies of the Indian Himalaya, emphasis on Himalaya, including Bhutan. In 1892, he described Crosiura Hesperidae in the Journal of the Bombay Naturalistic Society. With a great famine striking India in 1899, George Nathaniel Curzon, at that time the Viceroy of India, intensified agricultural research and productivity. Curzon appointed D. Niceville as the first government entomologist in consequence. So this is a starting point of the formal entomology in India when the first government entomologist was being appointed with the appointment of Niceville, D. Niceville as the government entomologist. So I have, instead of showing you the image of D. Niceville, I have shown you a butterfly which is named after him. The subspecies Niceville is a rare high-altitude swallowtail endemic to Himalayan Asia. It celebrates this naturalist and explorer Ferdinand Stoichka, and the subspecies celebrates D. Niceville. And the photograph is from Robert Nash. Now, this is the book written by D. Niceville along with George Marshall, The Butterflies of India, Burma, and Ceylon, 1882. Now, some days ago, I was talking to Dr. Subramaniam and Dr. Ramurthy on phone, and I said that I was so super excited to find a new name which was not mentioned by any historian of entomology in India, who was Cedric Dover, Cedric Cyril Dover. Cedric Cyril Dover, I was so excited because he was groomed by Thomas Nelson Annandale. Many of us would be remembering him as the director of Zoological Survey of India, the founder director of the Zoological Survey of India. And Cedric Cyril Dover was born in Calcutta. It was Thomas Nelson Annandale who mentored Cedric. At an age of 16, Annandale brought him to work with him in Zoological Survey of India, but in none of the obituary articles I have looked into, I could not track his background education to any detail. There was only some sketchy information that he was studying medicine, but obviously he has discontinued for some reason. In fact, when I read that part, I was remembering that this is particularly running parallel with that of Dr. M.S. Mani. I do not know how many of you are aware that Dr. M.S. Mani joined medical school in Madras Medical College after his intermediate class in Vellore, which is called the Urhis College in Vellore, because he joined medicine, and probably at that time it was not an MBBS title, it was an MBBCH title. And this was his personal sharing of information to me, which I remember very well. And he had to discontinue because it was that year his father died. And he had to support his, I don't know exactly how many brothers and sisters he had, but I do remember that he, for the sake of supporting the rest of his siblings, he had to give up his study and seek a job somewhere. So he told me that he had collected insect gall materials and stored them in preservatives, very probably dilute solutions of formalin or alcohol, I'm not sure. And carrying large jars of them, he went to applied for a position of gallery assistant in Zoological Survey of India. And he was invited for the job. And I think it had several floors. I don't remember the details. So he got into the lift to go up to the specified floor where the interview was to be held. So when he got into the lift holding all the jars close to his chest, an elderly person also walked into the same lift. And as the lift was crawling up, that elderly person asked Mani, "Who are you? Why are you here?" Then Mani just said that I have come here for a job of gallery assistant. And I've been called for the interview. I'm going for the interview. Then that elderly person asked Mani, "What are these?" Then Mani said, "These are the insect-induced galls, and I have collected them over these years, and I thought I will show them about that." And he briefly spoke about that within the short span of time that by when he reached that floor where the interview was being held. And needless to say, the elderly person was none other than Thomas Nelson Annandale, who had already interviewed him in the lift. And therefore, when Mani walked in, he had the pleasant surprise to see the same person sitting there. And he said, "You are appointed." And Mani got the job as a gallery assistant. And that's where his job with the Zoological Survey of India started. So when I was reading the story of Cedric Cyril Dover, I thought very probably there is a parallel here, and very likely that Annandale also brought Cedric Dover under his fold and helped him to prosper as a brilliant scientist. I'm using the word scientist because there is a reason for it, which is unfolding a little later. But anyway, Annandale enabled Cedric to secure a scholarship to study in the University of Edinburgh. On return, Annandale employed Cedric to work at the Zoological Survey of India as an entomologist. I'm not too sure whether it was an entomologist or probably a lab assistant. I'm not too sure about it. I will just use it as an entomologist at this stage. Because I have found that he has published a few papers associated with one Mr. Srinivasa Rao, who had an MA title, and he was identified as an entomologist. So very probably Cedric was an assistant to Srinivas Rao, and I don't know the exact title under which he was employed. Anyway, they both worked on insects and they have published quite a few papers. I was able to access some of them. And mostly he worked with Coleoptera at that time and butterflies. But subsequently, some independent papers by Cedric Dover have been published on Hymenoptera, about which the next paragraph starts. Cedric published his first scientific paper on the Vespidae at the age of 18, along with Srinivas Rao, who was then the assistant superintendent at the Zoological Survey of India, Calcutta. So the paper is Dover and Srinivas Rao, a note on the Diploteres wasps in the collection of the Indian Museum, Journal of the Asiatic Society of Bengal. Citations are given there. But what is impressive is that his first publication was rolled out in 1922 when he was just 18. In 1923, at the age of 19, he published the booklet, The Common Butterflies of India, an introduction to the study of butterflies and how to collect and preserve them. I was not able to track this paper by any means, but I got the citation in full. So if somebody is able to track it down and give it to me, I'll be most grateful. His entomological interest led to untiring research and many scientific papers, some written jointly with Mercia Haynes-Wood. Who was Mercia Haynes-Wood is the person whom he married later and divorced her. Dover described a primitive ancestral crustacea, held an extensive collection of aquatic insects, studied the spike disease of sandalwood trees, and looked for ways to preserve wood from termite attacks. He had a lifelong undiminished love for trees. And incidentally, I forgot to add here that he was also a protege of Cyril Beeson, CEFC Beeson, the founder, director of, or superintendent of the Forest Research Institute of Calcutta. Dehradun. Now here I have reproduced the first page of one of the fascinating articles which I happened to read. I got it fully downloaded in Calcutta Review dated 1922. You can see the first page here. I have put the cursor on in 1922, and the title is Entomology in India. Now what is special here is it is predating Ramakrishna's article in the Indian Journal of Entomology by a decade. And in this article, Dover speaks about the history of entomology and the mythological references of entomology, the Indian mythological references to insects and entomology in broad sense, including the Lakshagriha as referred in Mahabharata, which is also referred by Ramakrishna subsequently. But then what is fascinating is Dover never knew Sanskrit of any means. So he declares it at the very beginning. See, he speaks about one Dr. Bhandarkar is mentioned in Sanskrit works written in several hundred years before Christ, such as the Vedas. And he says that, unfortunately, I don't know Sanskrit, so I have relied on Dr. Bhandarkar, and he speaks about it. I felt his honesty was pretty impressive. Then, this is an incomplete list of publications I could manage to muster with Cedric Cyril Dover. So some interest to people, some of them are in Nature. At least 2 papers I could muster published in Nature. But today we all know how difficult it is to publish in Nature, but those days, maybe it was not that difficult. At least 2 papers he has managed to publish, one in 1921 and another in 1929. So it's a very interesting person. But then I have stopped with that because later on, when I read about Cyril Dover, that he switched his interest to anthropology, and he seems to have gained that interest also from Annandale, who was also publishing on human evolution and human diversity or human race diversity. So he has written extensively on that aspect. I am working on a full-length article on Cyril Dover because I feel that this is one person who has been unfortunately neglected by our historians so far, including myself. I made a search in Subarov. I could not find the name of Cyril Dover in that, so I will use it as a sort of an important landmark thing. He worked in Malaysia for some time. He worked in, he was a professor in America in teaching various disciplines. A person of very brilliant, exciting history and life. But seems to have gone through a lot of mental agony and torture, very probably. I am yet to confirm those things, because he was born as an Anglo-Indian. And you know, in the early 20th century, Anglo-Indians were treated very badly, both by the Indians on the one hand and by the Europeans on the other. They were the most unwanted group of people. Very probably this unpleasant taste in the minds of Dover has left a very sad note in him, but he lived a good person, devoted to India, and written wonderfully. And I will look forward to the time when I will be able to write an interesting article on Dover and bring to light many details about him. Anyway, that's about possibly an incomplete list, because I have not done much work on that. The rest of the story, what I'm going to tell, is probably familiar to most of you, so I will quickly go through them. The vital person whom we need to think about, the dawn of formalized study of insects, especially those of agricultural significance, Harold Maxwell Lefroy. I have managed to bring in an image of the what was originally the PUSA campus, but it could have been, it need not have been the original PUSA campus of when Maxwell Lefroy established that. Again, I have written a story on the munificence of Henry Phipps, one of those brilliant, one of those very generous-minded Americans who contributed for the development of the Pasteur Institute in Connor, but he was the primary driver for the PUSA Agricultural Institute to be founded. So I have written about that elsewhere in another article of mine. So I'm not going to go into all those details, but briefly, Harold Maxwell Lefroy was an academic at the Imperial College London. He was also the second imperial entomologist to India. He worked on applied entomology and initiated experiments on the use of chemicals to manage pestiferous arthropods. He formulated a compound which saved the Westminster Hall, which is known as the oldest building in the British Parliament estate, from wood boring beetles. His other formulations were used in managing trench lice in World War I. He accidentally died when experimenting with fumigants to regulate pestiferous arthropod populations. He started a company called Rent-to-Kill, which is still running. So many of you, if you just run an internet search for Rent-to-Kill, you will find that it is still existing, and this is one of the major contributions. And importantly, most of us will know about his significant contribution to Indian insect life, Maxwell Lefroy, assisted by Howlett. I don't need to go into it. Then comes the key factor who streamlined the science of entomology in India, who was Fletcher. Now, Thomas Bainbridge Fletcher, the professional exchange of entomological findings throughout the country with specific focus on agricultural entomology, was organized at the Imperial Institute of Agricultural Research. That was the original name of PUSA Institute. Imperial Institute of Agricultural Research from 1915 at the initiative of Thomas Bainbridge Fletcher, who succeeded Lefroy as the imperial entomologist. Fletcher served in the British Navy until 1915. During his tenure, he joined the Percy Sladen Trust expedition to the Indian Ocean. Based on this experience, he was appointed as the imperial entomologist in India following Lefroy, stationed at the Imperial Institute of Agricultural Research, Pusa, in 1915. He did not have any formal academic qualifications in entomology, but was thorough in insect and taxonomy in general, and that of the Lepidoptera, especially Microlepidoptera. One of the pioneering contributions to the development of Indian entomology was the conduct of annual meetings of entomologists in India, which ensured the avoidance of duplication of work. So one of the key purposes of these annual meetings, which is otherwise known as the Pusa meetings, was to avoid the duplication of work. Entomological meetings initiated by Fletcher at Pusa started in 1915, the second occurred in 1917, the third in 1919, the fourth in 1921, and the fifth and the final in 1923. So here I'm showing, just as an example, I have already published this photograph before. At least some of the important persons I can talk about is Y. Ramchandra Rao here and Ramkrishna here, and a few other names. I think Beeson is also sitting here. No. Yes, Beeson is sitting there, one of them. So you will find the, just a reminder. So it was at the start of the Entomological Society. It was the third entomology meeting at Pusa held between the 3rd and the 15th of February 1919. So that was the sort of the inception of the Entomological Society. Fletcher made the first call. So the details are there at the below, given at the reference, for a society for Indian entomologists to those gathered professionals there. He argued that his thought for a society of Indian entomologists was triggered by a note he had read in the Indian Industrial Commission report, details again provided below, submitted by Henry Holland, released some months before in 1918. So he had an inspiration coming from the Indian Industrial Commission report, which talks about the Institute of Engineers in India. While speaking on this point, Fletcher referred to various professional societies as the Institution of Civil Engineers in India that was existing from 1837, and similar professional societies in Britain, such as the Chemical Society from 1841 and the British Association for the Advancement of Science from 1831. Fletcher declares that there will be many advantages because of the society covering the whole of India. Its membership would gain great prestige to the associated professionals. Further to reading and discussing professional papers, that society would engage in problems with which the state has to deal and in which it would be advantageous to receive the considered opinion of a representative body. So these were the sort of gross objectives with which the idea was floated in 1919. Fletcher's suggestion calling for the society hibernated for 18 years. Nobody spoke anything about it. It re-emerged at the 24th Indian Science Congress. You remember I said that the last one was held sometime in 18 years earlier, and the Pusa meeting stopped, but then in between the entomology section was held as part of the zoology section of the science congresses that were being held every year. It re-emerged as the 24th Indian Science Congress session held in Hyderabad in 1937. After a serious discussion, a Society for Indian Entomologists was born there. The Science Congress in Hyderabad, the 24th Indian Science Congress, is a momentous year because that was the year in which the sugarcane visit of India spoke about his fantastic discovery of the hybrid sugarcane, which changed the complexion of the sugar production in India. So this was he delivered the general presidential address, which was a momentous talk. And that talk was entitled as from the sugar bowl, from the begging bowl to the sugar bowl, which made the change of sugar production in India. And that was the momentous year in which this society was also born. So as a sequel to that discussion, A few names I've got there. One person I could not identify, I mean, I could not get a photograph of was Durgadas Mukherjee, I think, or Devraj Mehta, one of them. So one of them I could not get a picture. So the six of them, the ad hoc committee consisting of Afzal Hussain, Pruti, Ramakrishna, Ramchandra Rao, Chatterjee, and Mehta and Mukherjee, was constituted to develop rules and regulations for the proposed society. So that initiated the society. On January 38, at the 25th Indian Science Congress session held in Calcutta, Ramakrishna moved the resolution that the Society for Indian Entomologists be named as the Entomological Society of India, and the draft rules developed by the ad hoc committee be accepted as such. So the important aspect or the momentous aspect here is the resolution was moved by Ramakrishna and it was accepted unanimously. ESI formally was launched by Muhammad Afzal Hussain, an Indian locust entomologist and later the principal of the Punjab Agricultural College at Lialpur, now in Faisalabad, Pakistan. Now this reference I have taken from Kastur Rangan. See, there is a bit of confusion about the way Hussain and Muhammad are being spelt in different articles. So because of that confusion, I have stuck to Kastur Rangan, who has spelt as I have spelt here. So if anybody is going to find a different spelling, then forgive me for that. This is the reason for that. Now, another colorful insect, an immature of the Perculus spectrus, which I am so excited about, so colorful animal. Now, I have touched a brief story about the entomology in India only up to the 1938, the start of Entomological Society of India. As I told you before, collaborating with Chitra Narayan Same, I have already published an article, and one of the younger colleagues in University of Agricultural Sciences, sorry, I can't remember the name, has made a YouTube clip based on our article, which is also available. So there's no point in rehashing and flogging a dead horse. So therefore, I am going to stop here the historical part. Now, when Dr. Puri spoke at the beginning and Dr. Coker spoke at the beginning, they wanted me to offer some advice as a person living elsewhere. I'm not going to give any advice. I have no right to give an advice. And I see I don't have an authority to do that. But what I want to say here is that the science of entomology in India needs a slight different direction from what it is currently proceeding in. I am one who has been trained in insect-plant interactions and the ecology of it. I started with basic anatomical and microscopic work, but then I switched over to qualitative physiology. Then I changed over to quantitative physiology. Then I changed over to chemical ecology. Then now currently I'm working on molecular ecology and proteomics and lipidomics. Now, what I am saying is that I would suggest that the world is moving fast. The younger entomologists need to recognize that we are in a competitive world. The world is moving very rapidly. There are upsides and downsides of both. We need to weigh them very carefully. One of the gifts of India is the rich biodiversity. So we need to be able to understand that biodiversity with modern tools as we have, and we should also be able to preserve them and conserve them. And I should not be seen as somebody making an unnecessary comment here. Please forgive me for that. It is just out of a concern I'm saying here. Insects are, to me, they are absolute marvels in natural world. They are just brilliant. They are just brilliant. Any arthropod for that matter, because we are talking about insects, I am emphasizing the insect. If I were to talk about general biology, I would say all biological things or the organisms are marvelous, including the humans. But we should remember that we are part of the kingdom Animalia and we are part of that. So we need to recognize that element very carefully and feel that we should be one among them and treat them with utmost respect and regard. See, I have always spoken to Ramurthy whenever I have had an opportunity to talk to him in private, that the current trend in entomology today, especially in India, I'm speaking about India because I am an Indian by heart, although I'm living elsewhere. I want my country to go up well and think well and treat everything well and consider that. So in that sense, I think I have the slight level of freedom and liberty to speak about this. Very sadly today, the word insect is getting obliterated from the Indian
You are
dictionaries.
an insect.
Say it again.
I think
You are
somebody's
an insect.
mic is not muted. Ramjat, please mute your mic.
So what I'm coming to say is we need to value the insects and treat them on par as we human beings. We need to be respectful to them. The tragedy today is that we look at them as most unwanted organisms, the pests, and we try to eliminate them in every possible manner we can think about. Of course, human interests are very important, or at least we consider them to be very important. But I think the world has to be shared. So in that context, I thought I will just share one interesting article which I recently read, which is not my work. This is somebody else's work, which I have acknowledged here, Mahadik. And it's a long list of authors, which is published in the Scientific Reports of Nature. Super hydrophobicity and size reduction enabled halobatus in the sea dwelling or sea surface skating, ocean surface skating gerid to colonize the open ocean. A brilliant article I have ever read, fascinating article, speaking about the way the insect has adapted itself to live in that. So just to illustrate an interesting aspect about it, they have used time-lapse videography to show how the animal is adapting itself to the life on the ocean bed and how the pressure system and then it's able to skate on the surface in spite of it being salty. So all that are beautifully calculated and measured and impressively demonstrated. So this is just an example. This is one of the recent articles which I happened to read. I think this dimension has to be emphasized more and more in India, in Indian entomology. And if I can make a suggestion, this is my suggestion. You have got a grand master living in India in the name of Raghavendra Gadekar, who has unraveled fabulous dimensions of insect ecology and behavior. We need to know more and more about it. And I would only strongly encourage younger entomologists to consider the insects as fabulous natural creations, which are going to give us extraordinary intelligence and knowledge about the world and the organisms around it. I have given a few suggestions here. I'm not going to read them. I am going to just leave them as such. Probably Dr. Subramaniam, if he's interested, he can share the slides with all of you, because I already taken more time than what has been given to me. So in summary, I will just conclude it with this slide. This is again another favorite insect of mine, the most majestic coleopteran, the coconut beetle, rhinoceros beetle. There's no comparison here. It's a marvelous animal. I don't know who named it the rhinoceros. It is just a minified version of a rhinoceros. In every way, it is so elegant and beautiful.
Big cock.
Insects affect the influence and all aspects of human life. Although several problems have been solved, many, both old and new, still await solution and resolution. Since World War II, many key developments in the chemistry of insecticides and application equipment have occurred, but we need to recognize that these developments have ushered in newer and more complex problems, probably the most important of which are the effect of insecticides on agricultural product quality and flavor, further to diverse environmental issues. Another key development is the intensifying crisis of insect resistance to diverse synthetic chemicals. A solution to such complex issues necessarily requires a better understanding of diverse related fields and cooperation among scientists from various disciplines. Insect biologists will need to work closely with organic chemists and biochemists, plant pathologists, food technologists, plant physiologists, economists, among others, further to having a broader vision of science, which includes entomology as a micro-discipline within it. So I will just conclude my presentation here. I have made an effort to speak about a quick survey of the history of entomology in India. I know that I have not touched all finer aspects. I'm fully aware of it, but time is a big constraint. So within that, I have made an effort, but very importantly, I am so excited that this lecture invitation has prompted me to discover, I will use the word discover within quotes, discover that unsung hero of Indian entomology, especially Hymenoptera, Cedric Cyril Dover. And very shortly, I will come up with an article which will come up elsewhere in some other journal, which will publish my article. It is so fascinating. So many things are buried. So many details are there. Not necessarily everyone has to study the history of entomology, but all of it is making us learn perseverance, making us learn hard work, effort. So that education is something fantastic, which we need to pick up from. And then we have to move with the days and time and strides. Let's recognize that entomology, or the study of insects, is far beyond control. There are so much to learn from the insects. The termites teach us the brilliant social life and even some of the wasps. So many of these details are to be learned by us. And let's recognize that we are a part of the bigger world, which is just stunning and amazing. And thank you again for your patience. I am so happy to be given this rare opportunity of giving the first Foundation Day lecture by the Entomological Society of India. I'm extremely honored, and I have no words to thank the office bearers and the members and the fellows of the Entomological Society of India. To all of you, I offer my special sense of gratitude and thanks, and my namaskaram. Thank you once again.
Thank you very much, sir, for a very brilliant and fascinating talk. And I think all of us have been fascinated by the quantum and the depth of your talk, sir. And thank you very much, sir, for being with us today, sir. And
ask him to unshare the slides, Rajana.
It deserves, I think Dr. Raman can unshare the slide. Okay.
Yes, sir.
I'm
Sir.
doing it. I'm doing. Just give me some time, please. I am a bit slow with all this.
No problem. No problem. Go ahead. Okay. In the meantime, I must say here that we are all very much gifted to have Dr. Raman with us. It is really, we are really indebted to you. I have no words to express our thanks to you. In fact, this deserves a standing ovation from each one of us, which is not possible in an online.
From their seat, we can stand, sir.
Yes, okay.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, sir. So in this occasion, just I'm requesting Dr. V.V. Ramamurthy, sir, to felicitate Dr. Raman with a memento and a certificate. Sir, please.
A virtual memento and a virtual certificate.
Yes, sir. But it will, we will make sure that it will reach to you, sir.
Thank you. Very kind of you.
So reach you definitely. I'm showing it here. We are very glad that you could do this, and this memento is nothing for you. I feel whatever
Accept
memories
it
you bring
with
us, that is
gratitude.
just memento. Okay.
Accept it with gratitude.
Memento and the certificate is going to be sent to you over courier. Okay.
I
So
don't
we
want
will
you
all
to spend
remember
money
the-
on sending it by courier. I will collect it when I come to India.
We will remember this this lecture forever. Dr. Coker mentioned in the beginning itself that this will be a thing to remember for a long time to come. Yes. Dr. Rajana, you can proceed.
Thank you, sir. Now I'll welcome Dr. K.S. Coker, sir, for the chairman remarks. Sir.
So I am finding myself short of words that how indebted we are to Dr. Raman for this, who it is too difficult to summarize the history of anything. But in such a short span of time, he could go through the history covering about 300 years, starting from kinning work, then moving through the so many others, and particularly some of the unsung hero of the entomology. And also he mentioned that how the idea of Entomological Society of India cropped in, then it remained under hibernation for 18, 19 years, and again, thankfully, it took the shape. So, particularly personally speaking, I am highly indebted to Dr. Raman. It was a very brilliant sketch of your history of entomology as such prior to 1938, when the Entomological Society came into being actually and started publishing this journal. Now, beside history, you mentioned some of the suggestions which are very pertinent and relevant today in today's life, particularly a kind of suggestion to the younger generation that how competitive this world is, and there is cutthroat competition in everything, and how they can move. And another thing is that the world is seeing insect them as unwanted creatures on earth, which should not be the case. And that is why we should start living with insect. And that's why, thankfully, the world has now started appreciating the existence of insects, and now they have started uh, talking of the organic farming, which was earlier there. We shifted to chemical farming later on. So in a way, we are very thankful to Dr. Raman for this brilliant talk which he has given, and how nicely he has summarized everything for this. I am also thankful to our chief patron, Dr. Puri, President of the Entomological Society of India, Dr. Ramamurthy, who could thought of it, and this brilliant idea of starting the memorial lecture, the foundation, particularly on the foundation day of the society. So, and today at least I could see some of the old faces also online, who are sitting in the galaxy of the most of the scientists. So with these words, I close, and thanks once again to all the organizers. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, sir. Next part of our program is an interactive session with the executives of entomological and plant protection societies in India. And I request Dr. V.V. Ramamurthy, President, Entomological Society of India, to take over the interactive sessions.
I request all of you not to leave the session, because I will be finishing it maximum of 10 or 15 minutes, because we are going to have very brief interactions with the stakeholders of entomology dissemination in the country. So first, to start with, I will see whether Dr. David is still there. He is a stakeholder for entomology for a long time. I don't know, he was telling me that he won't be able to speak. If he is able to speak, I will call upon Dr. Vasandraj David. Probably he told me that he won't be able to join. Dr. David?
Okay. Sir is not seen, sir.
Okay.
He
Okay.
was here, sir, a short while ago.
Okay.
Yes, sir. But now he is
now,
not.
Dr. Sarath Babu from Plant Protection Association of India. Okay, let us be over to Dr. Sushil and Dr. Shivakumar from Society for Biocontrol Advancement. The purpose of this meeting is to see whether we can all come together for a common cause devoted to entomology.
Dr. Ramurthy,
Yes.
I have, give me 1 minute, everything is over. Everybody is responding.
Definitely. Please go ahead.
Dr. Sushil may come in and then we will speak further. Is Dr. Sushil Shivkumar there?
Sushil is not there, Shivakumar. Both I could find them in the beginning.
Yeah.
Okay, if they are not there, let us go ahead with the pest management horticulture ecosystem. I think Dr. Reddy is there.
Yeah, good evening, sir.
Please.
Am I audible,
For a
sir?
few minutes. Oh, we can come together.
Am I audible, sir?
Yes, you are audible.
Yeah, sir. Actually, it's a very nice idea when we received a communication from you and association for our advancement of pest management in horticulture. We have been successfully running the journal also, and society is very active for last 28 years. And we'll be happy to be part of the consortium of all plant protection associations. And as we are exclusively dealing with the horticultural crops, I think we will be contributing meaningfully and also will get benefited and serve the farming community as well as the researchers. So we will be happy to take part in this.
Anybody else? Dr. B.K. Tyagi is there from the Society of Medical Anthropology and Public Health.
So, Dr. Ramamurthy, may I please?
Yes, please, sir. Okay.
First of all, yeah, good evening, all present. So, thanks to Dr. Raman for wonderful and information lecture on history of entomology in India. Thanks to the Entomological Society of India for organizing this lecture as its Foundation Day lecture. So, me, Dr. Pradeep Chuneja, former head of the Department of Entomology, and also the president of North Zone of Entomological Society of India, being also the president of the Indian Society for the Advancement of Insect Science, INSES. So I endorse the viewpoint put forth by Honorable President ESI that all the entomological associations and societies, they can work jointly, as this will facilitate the larger participation of the concerned stakeholders and will usher in taking our message and entomology cause further and wider and farther. So this will also make the visibility of entomology better tangible. The convergence can be explored in various dimensions, including or easier at least in organizing the regional and national scientific fora. So on behalf of the INSES, I ensure all the support and cooperation. Thanks and regards to you all. So Jai Hind.
Thank you. Dr. Bentur, Dr. TVK Singh or Gururaj Katti.
Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Please, we are able to hear you.
Good evening, everybody, and my apologies that still my camera is not working. But Professor TVK Singh and the Gururaj Katti are here. On behalf of all of the team, Entomology Hyderabad is more than willing to join this federation. And this is our dream also, that all of us should come together and work for the cause of entomology. So any step you take towards it, we have the fullest cooperation. And we look forward to your leadership, sir. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Dr. Rashmi is there on behalf of Dr. Varghese. Dr. Rashmi on behalf of Dr. Varghese, because he is away on some medical appointment, he has made Dr. Rashmi to join. I think she is also not to be there.
Yes, sir.
Okay, from the, yes.
Sir, myself, sir, Bharat Singh. From, yes, sir, please.
Be very brief. Anything
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Good evening, sir. Good evening, everyone. Sir, I am very happy to join today program. Entomological Society Foundation Day, sir. Congratulations, everyone. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. Over to, if there is nobody from the association, Bharat Singh, can you close your
Dr.
point?
Ramurthy, can I intervene? Dr. Ramurthy.
Yes, Gururaj, yes, please.
This is, I am speaking on behalf of Sharad Babu because I am
Okay.
also part of the Plant
Please
Protection
go ahead,
Association
please go
of
ahead.
India.
Okay.
On his behalf, I take the liberty of assuring all the cooperation from the Plant Protection Association of India to the cause of entomology. And I would also like to inform you in short that there will be an international symposium on plant health, international conference on plant health, research and entrepreneurship is October 10th to 13th, 2023. So anyway, the details will be sent to you, all of you, a little later. So that is very much in the offing. So I request that all of you keep note of these dates, October 10th to 13th, 2023. There will be an international conference on plant health management, research and entrepreneurships. This will be the theme of this conference. So details will be sent to you later. Thank you so much, sir.
If there is nobody from any of these associations, I think let us hear Dr.
From Association of Entomologists.
Dr. Jagbir. Jagbir, I was trying to see you. Please, you are also having an association. Yes, please.
Yeah. First, I'm so thankful to you and because Dr. Raman is also a close friend. It was wonderful listening to him always as it is. So we are ever ready, Dr. Ramamurthy, you're a close friend and Association of Entomologists as president. I assure you all kind of cooperation for the cause of entomology. We have been together in organizing School of Insect Sciences. So I'm always with you. So whenever you say a word that I will be there. Thank you. It was nice meeting all of you. God bless.
Thank you. Sorry for missing you and finding you.
Sir,
really great. Dr. Subhagaran, please.
Yes, sir. I am speaking on behalf of Society for Biocontrol Advancement because Dr. Sushil said he's in another meeting.
Okay.
He said that Society for Biocontrol Advancement will walk along with Entomological Society of India to synergize the activities of plant protection in India, sir. Thank you, sir.
Nice, thank you. To sum up, those who are present here and those who could not be present, we will be making very much action-oriented steps to see that at least in some respect we can all come together. So we will be making this whole thing in action-oriented program in the next two or 3 months, and let us see how we can all go together. Okay, thank you.
Yes, that's good.
Dr. Rajendran, we are having only very briefly about 2 to 5 minutes.
Thank you. I have only 1 minute to share a thought, which is a golden day for me today when the Foundation Day lecture, first Foundation Day lecture background could bring out this thought for ESI to garner support of all the professional societies of entomology in this country. Entomology also includes ecology and various other ancillary fields. When I was in office as ADG in ICR, I proposed this idea for plant pathologists as well as entomologists and nematologists that all these societies should have a confederation system. And today when I'm seeing this being sort of rationalized into a thought process, I am extremely happy and gratified about it. Thank you very much. This was a story of 2012. And after 10 years, if I see that this is a handshake is going on, it is fantastic. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Rajendran. In fact, most of this, what we are doing now, these are all the suggestions we have been given for a long time to come when we are in association with you, and hopefully we will be able to put them into action. Thank you. Okay. Anybody, very briefly, we can hear 1 or 2 minutes only, please.
I am Dr. Sushil Saxena.
Yes, okay.
My brief suggestion is that although ESI is holding its program, Foundation Day and other meetings very regularly and smooth conduct of the other programs, but I suggest that there should be a symposium or seminar at least once in 4 years to be conducted by the ESI.
No, there will be at least a symposium every year. Let us hope. Okay, and we can coordinate with other people and then we can alternate it. Okay, we will do it. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir.
Anything? Anybody? 1 or 2 minutes only, please.
1 second, can I enter?
Yes, Dr. Ramasamy. So I really, sir, I am really very grateful to you. It's really unexpected thing. Okay.
It's a very good initiative. You could hear and then remember a lot. At the same time, as a president, you should think in a longer way, just like American societies, European societies, Australian societies. You have to think what should be the educative program for the youngsters from 6th standard to 12th standard. What should be the entomological knowledge that should be incorporated? You please think about it. Now we are introducing the new education policy. We can change the curriculum and we can always introduce into the secondary education and primary education. Thank you.
So nice of you for this valuable suggestion. In fact, we are going to start with MSc
Sir, good
and PhD
evening,
students.
sir. Dr. Pawan from HFRI, sir.
One
Good
minute,
evening, sir.
please. Let me give a rejoinder to Dr. Ramaswamy, former Vice Chancellor of Tamil Nadu University. Sir, we are into it. We are in the first step. We are going to do Students' Congress, most probably in 2023 in the first half itself, where we are going to organize MSc and PhD students. And the school students are also in our radar, and we will be able to do it. Dr. Rana?
Sir, good evening, sir.
Please be very
Thank you
brief.
very much, sir.
Okay.
For after a long time, I am seeing you live, sir. Thank you
Nice.
very much. You are always busy, sir, and this is a great platform. And to see such great entomologists, so many, I am personally knowing, sir, it is a great platform, and we should also organize on regular basis international seminars or symposia, sir. That will be of great benefit to the younger entomologists, sir. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you, Dr. Pawan. Thank you. Thank you. Dr.
Can
Rajina?
Can I?
Yes, sir. Dr. Ananda Mukhopadhyay, great.
Yeah.
Ananda, please.
Hello.
Okay.
It's really nice today to have the lecture from Dr. Raman. It was really encouraging. And I think at this age also I have learned a lot from him. And especially congratulations to you for organizing such I think, stupendous program. And we should keep in touch. That's my wish. The rest of the years we live, we should be in touch in the interest of the insects, and to not only identify the problems and share with one another the solutions. Thank you so much for opening up the forum once again and this special lecture of the Entomology Society of India. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Ananda. Thank you.
Sir, TV kissing, sir.
Yes, please. Go ahead.
Sir, I join everyone here in complimenting and congratulating. As we said that we have his, probably Dr. Bentur must have briefed. I have missed his what they call presentation for 2 minutes. In Hyderabad, we have a group called as an Entomology Hyderabad, which consists of what they call retired entomologists as well as working entomologists. We have till now we have organized 3 biennial seminars or symposia. In the last December 2022 also we organized 1 symposium. You were present there, sir. In 2024, under the banner of Entomological Society of India, we want to organize International Congress of Entomology, sir.
Definitely, we will go ahead with your
Thank you,
support.
sir.
Okay, yes, nice. Okay. Can we all permit? We can close it. Dr. Rajina, please.
Hi, sir. Thus, we have reached the end of a beautiful evening of a golden day, as said by Dr. T.P. Rajendran, sir. So I request Dr. Sachin Suresh, sir, to the General Secretary of ESI, to propose a formal vote of thanks.
Thank you, Rajina. It was really an excellent talk delivered by Dr. Raman, who has delivered lecture on history of Indian entomology. And I must tell everybody that we are the entomologists who are we are all doing research on insects. And as he was telling that insects, they got evolved 250 million years ago, and human beings only 2.5 million years ago. And we should be, we are very lucky that we are doing research on insects. So let me start. So I am profusely thank Dr. A. Raman, the senior scientist CSIRO, rendering his valuable time to us. And really, sir, with your lecture, we are really enlightened. And many of us who are teaching the courses in different universities, so it will certainly help us. I earnestly thanks our chief patron, Dr. S.N. Puri, who was the president of us, and he is always guiding us on various issues. And I also thanks Dr. K.S. Khokar, sir, who is the patron of Indian Entomological Society, for excellently guiding us throughout this journey. I am also thankful to Dr. V. Ramurthy, sir, President, Entomological Society of India. It was actually his idea to host the Foundation Day lecture. So we are very thankful to you, sir. And I am very much thankful to members of Entomological Society of India and all the executive committee members for their support and for standing behind us. I am extremely thankful to Dr. S. Subramanian, head of the division entomology. It was actually who has supported all of us for organizing this lecture. Then there are so many stalwarts who have joined today through online. So to name few, Dr. N.K. Krishna Kumar, Dr. T.P. Rajendran, Dr. Ravi Joshi, Dr. Chitra Shankar, Dr. I.C. Chadha, Dr. Swaminathan, Dr. D.B. Ahuja, Dr. P.N. Ramani, Dr. Kururaj Katti, Dr. S. Mohan Kumar, Dr. T.P. Rajendran, Dr. Bentur, Dr. Ramani, Dr. Sujata, Dr. Dhuri, Dr. Ramaswamy K, who is the ex-Vice Chancellor of Tamil Nadu Agriculture University, Dr. B. Vasantaraj David, Dr. Ram Singh, Dr. Muniappan, Dr. T.V.K. Singh, Dr. Ejji Rahman, he was also there, early part of the lecture, Dr. Chandish Balal Madam, Dr. Padman Kumar Sir. I thank you all for joining us today for today's online lecture, and I seek your support for our future endeavors. Then I would like to also thank the Dr. Sagar, Dr. Shashank, Dr. Thimana, Dr. Rajna, who are our colleagues at division. They have done a lot of background work for organizing this lecture. Then I would like to also thank the staff of Entomology Society of India, especially Mr. Mahesh, Sonu, Mrs. Sunita for their all the help. And I would like to also thank the members of life members of and fellows of Entomology Society of India for their patience for being with us today. Then I would like to also thank the officials of the IRI, especially our director and joint director research. Actually, they have helped us a lot for organizing this lecture. Then last but not least, I would like to thank each and everyone who have helped us directly and indirectly for conducting this annual foundation lecture. So thank you very much, all of you. Thank you for joining us.
Sir, I just have a request. Can everyone please switch on the video mode so that we can click a pic of that, we can take it into.
100 people are to be clicked. I don't know where it will get.
Where we will have a screenshot.
All of you please mute your mic and then let us have a, okay. All of you please mute your mic. Okay.
Yes, sir, I have taken. Thank you all.
Madam, please send the pic to all.
Thank you all.
It will be
Thank you very
uploaded in the
much once
website,
again.
sir.
Please,
Thank
madam.
you all. Namaskaram.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you
So
all,
with the
sir.
permission of President, shall I end the meeting, sir?
Yes, I have no words to express my gratitude to each one of you. I have no words at all. Okay. For all the participants and all those who are behind this meeting.
Thank you, sir. Thank you
And
so
we
much.
need to thank Dr. Burman, sir, for his help.
So nice of you, sir.
Okay, good.
Nice of you,
Sir, I am ending
everyone.
the meeting, sir.
Everyone.
Thank you all. Bye bye.